Our story began on the 3rd of October 1998, the day my world changed forever when I first met Declan, the person I held in my arms and fell utterly in love with. That day will forever be in my memory as the day that the deepest bond of my life was made. As a very young mom-to-be, I'd made a deal with God. I would treasure this child as a gift from him. I'd make sure that this precious little gift would never doubt, even for a moment, how loved he was, how special he is. I knew it might not be possible to give him many material things. Apart from his Moses basket and some of his clothes, much of what he had as a baby was second-hand. But I promised God that I would give him everything that money couldn't buy. Our bond quickly grew with every moment that we made, with a kiss on his forehead every night and being told, "I love you to the moon and back, times infinity." And I told him if there was any time we were ever apart, he could look up into the night sky and know that he and I were seeing the same part of the moon. On a sleepover, look at the moon, I'll be looking at it too. I think back to the things he enjoyed as a very young child. Programs like Bob the Builder and the Tweenies, and before anything else, the start of his lifelong love of cars. From as early as he was able to hold a toy car, there would always be a car, as he called them, in his hand with any surface becoming a racetrack. It means a great deal to me that even the last time he was able to go to La Rosse, he was given a little Bugatti by one of his friends there. He would joke that he had petrol running through his veins and could name most cars just by their headlights. Two of the characters in the Tweenies are Jake and Milo, and they remind me of Dec and his great friend Reese. Dec was like Jake, the quieter one. Reese was like Milo, the go-getter in those stories. Jake might seem to take a back seat for a while, and like Jake, Dec was happy to observe at first, but when he came to say something, people listened. It would hit the mark. Something thoughtful, helpful, interesting, and so often very, very funny. We shared such happiness, and that continued throughout Declan's life, even though once his condition was diagnosed, behind every smile from that day onwards, there was also a tear. It was the 3rd of July 2006 that the diagnosis of Duchenne muscular dystrophy was made, which turned our lives on its axis. He was still my little cheeky freckled-faced 7-year-old, but I knew our journey would take a very different direction from that day forward. As I walked back to the children's outpatients playroom and helped Dec up onto a rocking horse, I saw a poem on the wall. A meeting was held quite far from earth. It's time again for another birth, said the angels to the Lord above. This special child will need much love. His progress may be very slow, accomplishments he may not show, and he'll require extra care from folks he'll meet way down there. He may not run or laugh or play, his thoughts may seem quite far away. In many ways, he won't adapt, and he'll be known as handicapped. So let's be careful where he's sent. We want his life to be content. Please, Lord, find the parents who will do a special job for you. They will not realise right away the leading role they're asked to play. But with this child sent from above comes a stronger faith and a richer love. As soon as they'll know the privilege given in caring from this gift from heaven, their precious charge, so meek and mild, is heaven's very special child. I knew at that moment what a privilege it was to be Dec's mom, and how he was still going to have the most amazing life. Over the next 5 years, he lost the ability to stand, walk, and eventually needed spinal surgery due to his spinal muscles being too weak to keep his spine. The surgery was a long, distressing 9 hours for me, fearing the worst. But he came through it, and soon after he began to come round. His head was gently bobbing, and after a moment I realised it was because there was music playing in the background. The music was, "I'm sexy and I know it." Duchenne's didn't define Dec. In his case, he defined it. It was only a very tiny part of who he was, and the way that he lived with it showed so much about his character. In 2015, we set sail on our first cruise. Now flying was incredibly difficult, only to end up in the air, being airlifted to a hospital in France after Declan had sepsis and liver failure. I was told that he wouldn't make it through the night while I sat stroking his hair and praying for a miracle. The following days were a waiting game, as the doctors told me it would be hard enough for a healthy person's liver to recover, let alone Declan's fragile body. A few days later, blood tests showed that there was a slight improvement with his liver, and he started to be able to speak. I was warned to stop being so excited, as he still had a long way to go and the prognosis was still bleak, to which I replied, "You don't know Dec, he'll be fine." And sure enough, he was. And he joked about being the second coming. Dec was my soulmate. We were a team. He was determined to live life, and we tried as hard as we possibly could to defy predictions, even regularly massaging his calves and doing stretches to enable him to still wear his Air Force Ones. On paper, he shouldn't have been eating, but somehow he had made his body teach itself not to aspirate. There was an occasion where he was asked how he could possibly know where an infection he had was located, but he was proved right that it was in actual fact the lower part of his right lung. He stayed in mainstream school, becoming prom king, went to college, but his greatest achievement was learning to drive with only his hands in a massive Mercedes Sprinter, which was quickly replaced with his beloved Ford. The freedom and normality that he felt from driving was breathtaking. He even drove us all the way to Norfolk while singing along to Radio 1. In reality, he actually didn't in any way realise how special he was. When he learnt to drive, he thought it was normal, just something everybody else was doing. He often didn't understand the enormity of the ways that he was managing to live life to the full, as far as he possibly could. Dec was a kind, funny, beautiful soul. One of his close friends aiming to pass her driving test was inspired because knowing Declan made her just want to really go for it all the more, and gave her a way to meet up with him more regularly, as being with Dec made her feel safe and unjudged. Often suffering so much, he would still be thinking of others. In recent weeks, it upset him that he couldn't text his friends very much. He worried that they would be distressed as what it might mean if they weren't hearing from him. His van also brought us to the Ford Club, a wonderful bunch of people who quickly became like family, not once treating Dec any differently, and giving him the friendship group and a sense of belonging which he had been hoping for. Not quite the Torettos living in Los Angeles driving Dodge Chargers and R34 Skylines, but Lester driving STs and Cosworths, meeting at pubs, our own little fast and furious family. I miss him making me laugh, the eye rolls, the things he said, his joke about putting his foot down. We always carried on using natural expressions like, "Are we going for a walk?" But his one-liners were never far away. Sometimes after, "Are we going for a walk?" his reply would be, "That would be a flipping miracle." He sometimes in frustration thought of himself as still a child, less streetwise than he wanted to be. But he had the wisdom and maturity beyond what a 24-year-old should have to have. At such a young age, to be reflecting on your own mortality, when he loved a film such as Avatar, to be afraid he might not get to see the sequel, which thankfully he did. To be choosing an eco-casket for his funeral. However, this reflected his love of the premise of Avatar, one of his favourite films. The idea of people being powered by the earth, by the trees, and at the end of life their spirits passing into the roots of those trees. He chose a natural burial because he believed that the body should become one with nature and be part of the earth and the trees and animals that the earth sustains. To me, Dec was the sun, the heart of the universe, the source of light and warmth, which without there could be no life on earth. When he was given the prognosis of months to live, he felt it was the kick up the arse to really live, and he created a bucket list. The top of his list was to have a hot chocolate by the Eiffel Tower, something he unfortunately never managed to do, but I will do this for you on your birthday, darling, with your spirit by my side. However, what he did manage to do before he became too poorly was to be rich for a day, which included a personal shopping experience at Selfridges, with his final purchase being his only choice of footwear, Nike Air Force Ones, yet another colour for the collection. His Air Force Ones, his glasses, and of course his van were and will always be his trademark. Another wish was to meet his favourite YouTuber, Tom, who is here today, showing that meeting my boy once was enough to be blessed with the deck effect, which is unforgettable and inspiring. Recently, I'd been doing mindfulness with Dec to help calm him when the discomfort and frustration got too much. On his final morning, we used the colour yellow, being a comforting colour, the colour of the sun, a colour that to us meant peace and tranquility. We imagined this colour running through his body, trickling around every fibre of his brain, to his arms, his heart, his lungs, right through to his toes, that as the yellow flew through his body, he would feel peace, comfort, and allow his body to relax. I take some peace in knowing that this thought was helping him on his final day with me. I take some peace in that fact, and on the last day, if there had to be a goodbye, this was how it was written. There was no hospital, no tubes, no carers. It was just the two of us having a heartfelt chat, even about how soulmates aren't necessarily partners, and that he hasn't missed out, as I've been here all along, when his heart took its last beat and part of mine died. One last car journey, our conversations, music playing, my hand on his right leg. He wasn't scared. In the story of my life, as in any novel, if the key person has left the scene, that person is part of the whole book right through to the end. He will always be the lead character in my story. There won't be a chapter that he isn't in. It's true that with the gift of this child, heaven sent, came stronger faith and richer love. Such a blessing in sharing my life with him. God bless you, my baby. I said you were too good for this world. I ask God to surround you with love and to keep me always knowing that you are close, sharing your strength with me, holding my hand through life.